They watch, they whisper, they wonder what you'll do next. And for far too long, you've let their opinions decide your worth. You've made yourself smaller to be accepted, silenced your truth to avoid conflict, and delayed your dreams to escape judgment. You've become an expert in pretending, smiling when it hurts, agreeing when you disagree, performing when your soul wants rest. But what if you stopped? What if you no longer cared who approved, applauded, or criticized? What if you trusted your voice more than their noise? This isn't about becoming arrogant. It's about becoming free. Free from overthinking. Free from performing. Free from shrinking. It's time to stop waiting for permission and start owning your presence. Because confidence doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being real. So if you're ready to reclaim your voice, protect
your peace, and live unapologetically, this journey is for you. Not to impress them, but to return to yourself. The version of you that no longer seeks validation, but radiates self-trust. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why we care too much about what others think. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already spinning. What will they think if I wear this? What if they don't like my post? What if I fail and they all see it? We live in a world where being liked feels like a form of survival. From childhood, we're taught to behave, to follow the rules, to not rock the boat. We're told to be polite, agreeable, and accommodating, because the opinions of others seem to determine our value. But let me ask you something. Who are they? Who are these invisible judges you're constantly trying to impress, please, or avoid upsetting? Most of the time, they are not thinking about you at all. People are too busy thinking about their own lives, their own insecurities, and their own fears. Yet here you are, holding back your truth, shrinking your potential, and suffocating your authenticity. Because of what someone might think. The hidden trap, social approval addiction. Our brains are wired for connection. In prehistoric times, rejection from the tribe meant death. That fear of rejection is still hard-coded into our biology. But today, your survival doesn't depend on someone else's approval. Yet, your mind hasn't caught up. What does this mean? It means you're constantly scanning your environment for signs of disapproval. A raised eyebrow, a sigh, a missed like on your photo. And you read into it as if your worth is on the line. It's not. The addiction to social approval is one of the most dangerous traps you can fall into. Why? Because no matter how much you try to please people, you will never be enough for everyone. There will always be someone who misunderstands you, someone who dislikes you for no real reason, someone who criticizes your best efforts. If you live for their acceptance, you'll die with their rejection. A moment of reflection. Pause and think. How many decisions have you made based not on what you wanted, but on what others might say? The job you didn't apply for, the outfit you didn't wear, the truth you didn't speak, the dream you didn't chase, all because you feared someone might judge you. Now ask yourself, did their opinion ever truly matter? Think of the people you were scared of disappointing 5 years ago. Are they still even in your life? Do you even remember their names? And yet, those invisible opinions shaped your choices, maybe even your identity. The mirror is broken. You cannot see your own worth by looking into someone else's mirror, because their mirror is cracked with their own insecurities, biases, and unresolved wounds. When you base your self-image on someone else's opinion, you're giving away the pen that writes your story. And here's the truth. Most people don't even know themselves well enough to know you. They judge you from their limited lens. So why let their opinion define your limitless potential? The turning point. The turning point comes when you finally realize you are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be you, fully, boldly, unapologetically. Yes, people will judge you. Let them. Yes, people will talk. Let them. Yes, people will misunderstand. Let them. Their opinions are not your responsibility. Your peace, your truth, your path, that is your responsibility. When you stop caring what others think, you free yourself. You stop living in a prison of perception and start building a life of purpose. You stop being a people pleaser and start becoming a soul liberator. Closing message for Chapter 1. So here's your first shift. Don't seek to be liked, seek to be real. Because the moment you stop caring what others think is the moment you start living your truth. This is not about arrogance, it's about authenticity. This is not about isolation, it's about liberation. You are not meant to live your life editing yourself for the comfort of others. You are meant to live boldly, speak freely, and walk proudly, not because they approve, but because you do. This is just the beginning. Let's go deeper. Chapter 2. The High Cost of Approval-Seeking Behavior. Imagine this. You're in a room full of people. You have something powerful to say, a truth, an idea, a need. But you stay silent, not because your voice doesn't work, not because your thoughts aren't valid, but because you're afraid. Afraid they'll think you're too much, too loud, too opinionated, too emotional, too different. So you shrink, you smile, you nod, you wear the mask. Again. This is what approval seeking looks like. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's silent. But the damage it causes is deep. The silent sacrifice. Approval seeking is not kindness. It's self-abandonment disguised as politeness. You become a chameleon, always adjusting your colors based on who's watching. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh at jokes that make you uncomfortable. You tolerate behavior that drains you. You chase validation like oxygen, and you suffocate your truth in the process. Bit by bit, you lose yourself. The worst part? You think you're being loved, but what's actually happening is you're being liked for a version of you that doesn't even exist. And that fake approval feels hollow. Because deep inside, you know the real you hasn't been seen or accepted. The psychological cost. Seeking approval triggers a constant cycle of anxiety. You're always second-guessing yourself. You overanalyze conversations long after they're over. You feel guilt when you put yourself first. You fear rejection even when none is present. It's exhausting. Your nervous system is in overdrive, constantly asking, did I say the right thing? Did I make them uncomfortable? Will they still like me? This isn't confidence. This is performance. And it keeps you stuck in emotional debt, where you keep giving your energy, time, and truth for someone else's comfort. The trade-off. Approval seeking looks like safety. But in reality, it's a dangerous trade-off. Here's what you give up when you constantly chase approval. Authenticity. You stop showing up as your true self. Confidence. You become dependent on external praise. Clarity. Your decisions are based on others' opinions, not your values. Freedom. You live in a mental cage, always checking what's acceptable. Joy. You stop doing what lights you up if it risks someone's disapproval. Growth. You avoid mistakes, risk, and challenge because you fear judgment. The more you seek approval, the more you disconnect from your power. It's a heavy cost for such a fragile reward. Real-life example. Take Maya, for instance. She was offered a leadership position at work. It was everything she had worked for. But when she told her friends, they rolled their eyes and joked, "Now you'll be too busy for us." So she declined the offer. Not because she didn't want it, but because she feared losing their approval. Now she's stuck in the same role, silently resenting the very people she tried to please. Can you relate? How many opportunities have you declined? How many dreams have you delayed? How many boundaries have you broken just to keep the peace? Here's the truth. If pleasing others costs you your peace, the price is too high. The wake-up call. What if you stopped? What if you gave yourself permission to stop performing, stop apologizing, and start living as you fully and freely? You'd upset some people. That's a guarantee. But you'd also attract people who love you for exactly who you are. And isn't that the connection you truly want? You don't need everyone's approval to live a meaningful life. You just need your own. Because when your self-worth is built on other people's validation, it's like building a house on sand. One gust of criticism and collapses. But when you anchor yourself in truth, when you say what you mean, live what you love, and stand where you belong, you become unshakable. Closing message for Chapter 2. Approval is not love. Validation is not self-worth. Being liked is not the same as being respected. The cost of approval seeking is your soul. And nothing, no applause, no acceptance, no smile is worth that trade. This chapter is your invitation to stop seeking applause from others and start giving yourself the standing ovation you deserve. Because when you let go of the need to be liked by everyone, you make room to be loved by the right ones, starting with you. Chapter 3. Your identity is not a reflection of their opinions. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a mirror. But instead of reflecting your own face, it reflects how others see you, distorted, blurred, sometimes even shattered. Now ask yourself, how much of your identity has been shaped by that mirror? Too many of us spend our entire lives wearing labels handed to us by other people. You're too quiet. You're not smart enough. You'll never succeed at that. You're too emotional. These voices echo louder than our own. And slowly, silently, they become our internal dialogue. We start to believe the opinions of others are facts. But they're not. They're just projections. Opinion truth. Just because someone says something about you doesn't make it true. Opinions are not absolute truths. They are colored by experience, emotion, fear, insecurity, and perspective. When someone criticizes your dreams, it may be because they gave up on theirs. When someone says you're not good enough, it might reflect their own self-doubt. When someone tries to limit you, it's often because they feel limited. But here's the trap. You internalize those opinions. You start to wear them like armor, trying to protect yourself from more pain. And without realizing it, you start shrinking into the version of yourself that they believe you are. But that version isn't real. It's a costume stitched from judgment, fear, and false identity. The cycle of self-abandonment. When you rely on other people to define who you are, you disconnect from your true self. You wait for their compliments to feel confident. You need their approval to feel worthy. You take their silence as disapproval. You interpret their criticism as truth. This is not self-awareness. This is self-abandonment. And it's dangerous. Because the longer you live according to someone else's view of you, the more you lose sight of your own. And the further you drift from who you truly are, the more anxiety, confusion, and emptiness you feel. Reclaiming the mirror. Your identity is not a democracy. It is not open to votes. It does not require permission to exist. You were born whole, worthy, powerful, and enough before anyone told you otherwise. The challenge is not to become someone new. The challenge is to remove everything you were never meant to carry. Their judgments, their labels, their fears, their definitions of success, their outdated narratives, because you are not who they say you are. You are who you decide to become. Real life moment. Take Daniel, a man who grew up hearing he was too sensitive, a phrase repeated by family, teachers, and even friends. He buried his emotions, learned to act indifferent, and adopted a tough exterior to survive. But deep down, he was a deeply compassionate, intuitive soul. It wasn't until his 30s, after years of anxiety, disconnection, that he realized he wasn't broken. He was mislabeled. That sensitivity they mocked was actually his superpower, the reason he could connect, empathize, and heal others. You are not here to fulfill their shallow expectations. You are here to live your deep truth, the compass within. So how do you stop letting opinions define you? You start listening to your own voice, even if it's shaky at first. You start asking yourself, what do I believe about me? What makes me come alive? What's true for me, even if no one else agrees? What do I value, even if the world doesn't applaud it? This is how confidence is born. Not from being right, but from being rooted. Rooted in your truth. Rooted in your values. Rooted in your soul. When you stop trying to be what they expect, you start becoming who you're meant to be. Closing message for Chapter 3. You are not someone else's version of you. You are not their expectations. You are not their insults. You are not their compliments either. You are a masterpiece in motion, constantly unfolding, deepening, and evolving. From this moment forward, every time someone tries to define you, remind yourself, that's your opinion, not my identity. Let them think what they want. Let them say what they will. You don't need to reflect their projection. You need to protect your truth. And that is where real confidence begins, when you stop borrowing your identity from others and start building it from within. Chapter 4. The psychology behind people-pleasing and fear of judgment. You're in a conversation. Someone says something that bothers you, but you laugh it off. You agree to something you didn't want to do again. You stay quiet when your heart screams to speak up. Why? Because deep down, there's a fear running the show. If I say what I really think, they might not like me. And in that moment, pleasing others feels safer than honoring yourself. But what if I told you this behavior wasn't just a bad habit? What if it's a psychological defense mechanism that once protected you, but now sabotages you? Where people-pleasing comes from. People-pleasing often begins in childhood. You might have grown up in an environment where love felt conditional based on behavior, achievement, or silence. If you were quiet, you were praised. If you got good grades, you were loved. If you avoided conflict, you felt safe. Over time, your brain learned that approval equals security. And so, you began to shapeshift, adapting yourself to be who others wanted you to be. That pattern may have helped you survive emotionally as a child, but as an adult, it's keeping you small. Because now, you don't live your truth, you perform it. The emotional cost of people-pleasing. People-pleasing feels like kindness, but it's often rooted in fear, not love. The fear of being rejected. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of being seen as selfish, difficult, or too much. And that fear creates a silent contract. I'll abandon myself so you won't abandon me. But here's the irony. The more you betray your truth for their comfort, the less connected you feel. Even when you're surrounded by people, you end up tired, resentful, and confused, wondering why you feel unseen in relationships you've worked so hard to maintain. That's because you're not being loved. You're being managed. Because no one can love the real you if you keep hiding it. The fear of judgment. At the heart of people-pleasing is fear of judgment. The fear that someone will see your flaws. The fear that someone will talk about you. The fear that someone will walk away. But here's the truth. Judgment is unavoidable. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you. You can be kind and still be called weak. You can be honest and still be called rude. You can succeed and still be resented. You're not avoiding judgment. You're just exhausting yourself trying to control it. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding judgment. Freedom comes from not fearing it. The brain's wiring. The brain is wired for safety, not authenticity. From a neurological perspective, your mind prioritizes avoiding pain. And for most people, rejection or judgment feels like pain, even physical pain. So your brain creates shortcuts. Say what they want to hear. Smile even when it hurts. Agree even when you don't. Stay small so you don't attract criticism. These are survival responses, not conscious choices. But once you become aware of this wiring, you can rewrite it. Because now you're not a child needing safety. You're an adult who can choose truth over fear. A real-life story. Meet Alina. She was always the nice one, the dependable friend, the agreeable coworker, the smiling daughter. But behind that smile was a lifetime of swallowed emotions. She said yes to things that drained her. She avoided conflict even when it cost her peace. She lost herself trying to be liked. It wasn't until a panic attack in a grocery store that she realized she wasn't anxious because life was overwhelming. She was anxious because she was constantly performing for approval. Her healing began when she finally said no, even though her voice trembled. And that first no became her doorway to real confidence. The shift. So how do you break free from people-pleasing? Start by asking yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I say what I truly feel? Who taught me I had to be agreeable to be accepted? What is the cost of continuing to live this way? And then start practicing truth in small ways. Say no to things that don't serve you. Speak up when your boundary is crossed. Let someone be upset with you and realize you'll survive. Each time you choose your truth over their comfort, you reclaim a piece of your power. Closing message for Chapter 4. People-pleasing is not compassion, it's fear wearing a mask. You don't need to bend over backwards to be worthy. You don't need to make everyone happy to be loved. You don't need to shrink to be safe. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be disliked and still be enough. Let go of the need to be approved by everyone. And step into the freedom of being fully, beautifully you. Chapter 5. Rewriting the script. Choose self-worth over validation. There comes a moment in life when you look in the mirror and realize you've been living a script that was never yours. A script written by parents, teachers, peers, and society, telling you who to be, how to act, what success looks like, and what you need to do to be enough. It's subtle but powerful. And it sounds like, if I succeed, I'll be worthy. If they like me, I matter. If I look perfect, they'll respect me. But the more you chase external validation, the further you drift from your true self-worth. It's time to stop reading their script and start writing your own. The role you've been playing. From a young age, we're trained to seek gold stars. Praise in school, likes on social media, approval in relationships, validation at work. We learn that achievement worth. We begin to tie our identity to outcomes, recognition, and applause. And so, you keep performing, smiling, striving, pleasing, pretending. But deep inside, something feels off. Because validation can feel good, but it never lasts. It's like a sugar rush for your soul, sweet at first, but it always crashes. You're left wanting more, needing more, craving more. But what if you no longer needed it? What if your worth was no longer up for negotiation? Self-worth versus validation. Let's get clear. Validation is temporary. It's external. It depends on others. Self-worth is lasting. It's internal. It depends on you. Validation says, I feel good because they approve. Self-worth says, I feel good because I'm aligned with my values, my truth, and my growth. Validation is fragile. It can vanish with one negative comment, one rejection, one disapproving look. But self-worth is bulletproof. It doesn't crumble when criticized. It doesn't disappear when unrecognized. Because it's not built on applause. It's built on authenticity. The problem with chasing validation, when you chase validation, you'll overwork yourself to exhaustion. Say yes when your soul screams no. Stay in toxic relationships just to feel needed. Avoid risks because failure might invite judgment. Tie your entire self-image to performance or perfection. In short, you'll live for approval, but die inside slowly. But when you choose self-worth, something shifts. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I like who I'm becoming? You stop seeking permission to be yourself and start giving yourself full access to your own power. Real-life breakthrough. Take Ravi, a talented artist who spent years painting what others wanted to see. Portraits, pretty landscapes, things that were safe. He gained followers, he gained praise. But he felt empty. Then one day, he created a raw emotional piece, not for likes, not for applause, but for himself. And though it made some people uncomfortable, it sparked something real. He finally saw the difference. Validation had made him visible, but self-worth made him alive. Rebuilding your self-worth. You were born worthy. Before the grades, the comments, the failures, the filters, your worth was whole. To rebuild it, you don't need to become someone new. You need to return to who you were before the world taught you to doubt it. Start here. Tell yourself the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Pretending creates more distance from your real self. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Self-worth grows when you honor effort, not just outcomes. Detach from applause. Learn to be proud of yourself even when no one notices. Validate yourself first. Stand in front of the mirror and say, I matter. I'm enough. I don't need to earn my existence. Set boundaries rooted in respect for yourself. Saying no to what dishonors you is a yes to your worth. Powerful questions to ask. Am I acting from truth or from fear of disapproval? If no one clapped, would I still do this? What would my life look like if I believed I was enough today, not someday? The answers will shock you, but they will also free you. Closing message for Chapter 5. You were not born to be a puppet for praise. You were not created to be defined by strangers' opinions. You are not a mirror for their projections. You are the author of your own worth. You decide what matters. You decide who you are. So stop waiting for the world to crown you. Crown yourself. Rewrite the script. Live from truth. Choose self-worth over validation. And watch how your life transforms. Chapter 6. The Art of Setting Boundaries. Without guilt, imagine someone repeatedly walking into your house uninvited, making a mess and leaving. You feel violated, disrespected, drained. Now imagine this happens daily. But instead of locking the door, you keep it open. Why? Because you don't want them to feel offended. That's exactly what happens when you live without boundaries. You allow emotional trespassers to walk in and out of your peace while you sit in silence, cleaning up the mess. What are boundaries, really? Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks that you control. They're not meant to push people away. They're meant to protect your energy, your values, your time, and your soul. Boundaries say, "This is how I deserve to be treated. This is what I need to feel safe. This is where I end and you begin." But here's the truth many don't want to admit. The people who resist your boundaries the most are the ones who benefited from you having none. Why we feel guilty setting boundaries. If the thought of saying no makes your chest tighten, you're not alone. You may feel guilty because you were raised to be a peacekeeper. You were taught that love means sacrifice. You believe that saying no makes you selfish. You fear people will leave if you speak up. But guilt is not always a sign you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's a sign you're doing something different. Guilt is a withdrawal symptom from the drug of people-pleasing. But it passes. And what replaces it is self-respect. Boundaries are not cruel. They are kind. Boundaries are not punishments. They are instructions for how to love and respect you. Imagine trying to dance without rhythm. It would be chaos. Boundaries create the rhythm in relationships. They allow two people to move together without stepping all over each other. When you don't set boundaries, resentment builds. You begin to blame others for things you never clearly communicated. Setting boundaries prevents that. It creates clarity, and clarity is kindness. Why boundaries equal self-worth. When you set a boundary, you are saying to the world, "I know my value." You're no longer asking others to define how much of you they get. You decide. You are no longer available for emotional manipulation, guilt-tripping, passive-aggressive behavior, one-sided relationships, energy vampires. You are only available for mutual respect, truth, and aligned connection. Boundaries don't push people away. They filter out the ones who never truly honored you. A real-life shift. Let's talk about Tara. She used to feel like a doormat, always saying yes, always available, always exhausted. Friends would dump their problems on her. Coworkers would give her their tasks. Family would guilt-trip her into doing things she hated. Then one day, she reached her breaking point. Not because she was angry at them, but because she was finally honest with herself. She started saying no without an explanation. She stopped answering texts immediately. She communicated her limits clearly and calmly. Some people drifted away, but the right ones stayed. And her peace? It finally returned. How to set boundaries without the guilt. Get clear on what you need. You can't enforce what you haven't defined. Ask yourself, what drains me? What behavior am I no longer willing to tolerate? Communicate directly, not defensively. Say it simply and clearly. I can't make it. I'm not available for that. That doesn't work for me. You don't owe long explanations. Expect resistance and hold the line. Some will push back. That's normal. Stay grounded. You're not doing it to punish. You're doing it to protect. Don't apologize for protecting yourself. You're not being mean. You're being real. And the people meant for you will understand that. Questions to reflect on. What am I tolerating that is quietly stealing my peace? What does my energy need to feel safe and respected? Where in my life am I saying yes when I really mean no? Who drains me, and why have I allowed it? Closing message for Chapter 6. Boundaries are not rejection. They are redirection toward peace, clarity, and truth. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not cruel for putting yourself first. You are not difficult for refusing to be disrespected. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to have limits. You are allowed to protect your sacred peace. And anyone who truly loves you will honor the gate, not try to break through it. This is your life. You get to choose who gets a key and who stays at the door. Chapter 7. Confidence from Within. Silence the inner critic. There's a voice inside your head. It whispers when you wake up. It shouts when you make a mistake. It lingers when you're about to take a risk. You're not ready. You're not smart enough. They'll laugh at you. Who do you think you are? That voice isn't truth. That voice is the inner critic, a shadow that follows you, built from years of judgment, failure, and fear. And until you learn how to silence it, you'll keep playing small. Where the inner critic comes from. The inner critic doesn't show up on its own. It is learned. Maybe it was a parent who always pointed out what you did wrong. A teacher who told you to stay quiet. A boss who made you doubt your potential. A friend who mocked your dreams. Little by little, those voices became internalized. And now, even when those people are gone, their words live in your mind, disguised as your own thoughts. But here's what they never taught you. That voice is not your truth, it's your training. The inner critic's favorite tricks. Perfectionism. If it's not perfect, don't even try. So you delay. You procrastinate. You overthink. And nothing gets done. Comparison. Look at them, they're way ahead of you. So you feel behind, inadequate, defeated. Even though everyone's timeline is different. Fear of exposure. If you speak up, they'll see you're a fraud. So you stay quiet, even when you know you're capable. And miss out on opportunities. Judgment paralysis. They'll laugh at you. Better stay silent. So you stay invisible. And you start to disappear from your own life. The critic doesn't want to protect you. It wants to control you. And its weapon? Shame. How to recognize the truth. Here's the truth. You are not your mistakes. You are not your worst thoughts. You are not broken. You are becoming. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear drive the car. Every person you admire has doubts. They just learned how to act anyway. You don't silence the inner critic by yelling back. You silence it by disproving it with action. A real story of breaking the inner voice. Let's talk about Marcus. He dreamed of being a speaker, but every time he prepared to stand on stage, his inner critic took over. You'll forget your words. You're not charismatic enough. You're just pretending. One day, instead of avoiding the fear, he sat with it. He asked himself, whose voice is this really? And he remembered his 6th grade teacher, who laughed when he stuttered in class. He realized this voice didn't belong to him. From that moment on, every time the critic returned, Marcus answered with a louder voice, "Watch me." And that one shift changed everything. How to silence the inner critic. Name the voice. Give it a name, not to make it real, but to separate it from yourself. When it speaks, say, "That's not me. That's just Doubt Dan again." Challenge the thought. Is it true? Is it always true? Ask for proof. You'll find it's often based on emotion, not evidence. Flip the script. Replace "I can't" with "I'm learning." Replace "What if I fail" with "What if I grow?" Language rewires belief. Take small, bold actions. Confidence doesn't come from thinking, it comes from doing. Each action quiets the critic and strengthens your trust in yourself. Speak to yourself like someone you love. You would never speak to a friend the way your inner critic speaks to you. So why tolerate it from yourself? Affirmations to build inner confidence. Say these aloud every day. I am not my fear. I am my courage. I trust my voice. It deserves to be heard. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be real. I am not behind. I am on my path. I am more than enough just as I am. You don't need to believe them fully right away. Repeat them until they become louder than the lies. Closing message for Chapter 7. The inner critic may never fully disappear, but it will get quieter when you get louder. Confidence is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's knowing who you are and choosing to be that person every day, even when doubt knocks. You are not here to play small. You are not here to dim your light for someone else's comfort. You are not here to believe the voice that told you to sit down, stay quiet, and wait. You are here to own your power. So the next time your inner critic whispers, "You're not enough," smile, stand tall, and say, "Watch me prove you wrong." Chapter 8. You are not for everyone, and that's your power. You walk into a room and feel it instantly, the pressure to fit in, to say the right thing, to tone yourself down, to become more like them. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being liked by everyone was the goal. But here's the truth that will set you free. You are not for everyone, and that is your power. The illusion of universality. You can be kind and still be disliked. You can be brilliant and still be overlooked. You can be generous and still be taken for granted. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you. Someone will misjudge you. Someone will not like you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. And that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their lens. Trying to be liked by everyone is a trap. It forces you to become a watered-down version of yourself until you no longer recognize who you are. Real confidence, embracing selectivity. True confidence isn't being liked by everyone. True confidence is being okay with not being liked and still standing strong. Imagine your energy like a frequency. Not everyone is tuned into your station. Some will hear static when you speak your truth. Others will hear music. Your job is not to adjust your signal for every ear. Your job is to transmit your truth clearly, boldly, consistently. The right people will feel it. The rest will fade, and that's okay. Why we want to be liked. The desire to be liked is ancient. It's wired into our biology. It once kept us safe in tribes. Rejection felt like death. But today, seeking constant approval is emotional suffocation. The moment you let go of needing everyone to like you, you give yourself the freedom to become fully alive. And here's the most beautiful part. When you stop trying to please everyone, your people can finally find you. Real life story. The artist who got free. Elena was a gifted photographer, but she spent years taking safe pictures, the kind that pleased everyone. Neutral tones, trendy edits, Instagram-friendly scenes. But inside, she longed to capture the raw, the bold, the uncomfortable, the truth. One day she took a leap and posted a series of unfiltered portraits. Wrinkles, scars, shadows, tears. The reaction? Some followers unfollowed, some criticized her, but others, they were moved, inspired, seen. And for the first time, she didn't feel liked by everyone. She felt loved by the right ones. That was the day she stopped chasing crowds and started building a community. How to accept that you're not for everyone. Redefine rejection. Rejection isn't always personal. Sometimes it's redirection, guiding you to where you truly belong. Celebrate differences. Imagine if every song sounded the same. You're not here to be an echo. You're here to be an original. Let silence speak. Not everyone deserves a response. Let your absence be your answer, where your truth isn't honored. Be selective with your energy. You don't owe your time, attention, or soul to everyone. Energy is currency. Invest it wisely. Affirm this truth often. I am not for everyone, and I don't need to be. The right people will celebrate what others criticize. Journal prompts. Where in my life am I pretending to be someone I'm not, just to be accepted? Who drains me by only accepting the filtered version of me? What parts of me have I silenced just to belong? What would I do if I didn't care who liked it? Sit with these. Let the answers rise. Then act. Closing message for Chapter 8. You were not made to blend in. You were not born to be digestible. You were not created to fit someone else's idea of enough. You are here to be real, not liked. To be true, not tame. To be whole, not perfect. Let them misunderstand you. Let them criticize. Let them leave. Because every time someone exits your life because of your truth, you make room for someone who enters because of it. So stop shrinking. Stop performing. And repeat after me. I am not for everyone, and that's exactly why I'm powerful. Chapter 9. When they talk, let them how to emotionally detach. They're going to talk about your choices, your lifestyle, your dreams, your mistakes, your success. Some will whisper behind your back. Others will judge openly. Many won't even know you, but still have something to say. And that's okay. Because here's the truth. What they say is none of your business. And the moment you emotionally detach from their noise, you reclaim your power. Why people talk? People talk because they're confused by your confidence. They're triggered by your growth. They're intimidated by your authenticity. Or they simply need a distraction from their own dissatisfaction. Let them. People will create stories in their minds to make sense of your courage, especially if they've never had the strength to do what you're doing. Your job is not to correct them, not to convince them, not to control the narrative. Your job is to keep becoming. Why we care so much. Our brains are wired for social survival. In ancient times, being excluded from the tribe could mean danger. So acceptance felt like life and rejection felt like death. That wiring still lingers. That's why criticism stings. Why gossip hurts. Why judgment makes you shrink. But here's what evolution missed. You're no longer in a tribe. You're in a truth. You don't need their approval to breathe. You don't need their permission to evolve. You don't need their applause to feel whole. Emotional detachment is freedom. Emotional detachment is not indifference. It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's the ability to hear their words and not absorb them. To witness their opinion and not assign it meaning. To walk through judgment and remain centered. Think of it like rain on a windshield. It's there, but it doesn't stop the car. You just turn on the wipers and keep driving. Real life shift, the musician who let go. Adrian was a gifted musician who almost quit after reading negative comments online. Strangers said his voice was too raw, too different, too unpolished. For a while, he tried to change, mimic others, play it safe. But then one day he asked himself, why am I editing my soul for people who don't even know me? He returned to his truth, kept creating, ignored the noise. Years later, the same voice that once received criticism is now celebrated for its authenticity, because he stopped listening to the world and started listening to himself. How to emotionally detach from judgment. Know your identity. The more you know who you are, the less you care about who they think you are. Detach from outcome-based worth. Don't tie your value to how people receive you. Speak your truth. The right ears will hear it. Use this mental filter. Ask, is this person living the life I want? If not, their opinion holds no weight. Remember, projection is real. Most criticism isn't about you. It's about their own fears, envy, or unhealed wounds. Give zero explanation. Silence is powerful. Let your peace do the talking. Daily affirmations for emotional detachment. I don't chase understanding. I embody it. Their opinion is not my identity. I am free from the burden of explanation. I owe no one access to my peace. When they talk, I rise. Repeat these, write them, embody them. Because when your self-worth is anchored, the waves of gossip and judgment can't move you. Closing message for Chapter 9. They're going to talk. Whether you succeed or fail. Whether you speak up or stay silent. Whether you shine or stay small. So you might as well live loud, love hard, create boldly, speak freely. Don't waste your precious energy trying to control their perception. Because while they talk, you evolve, you grow, you move forward, you win. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them gossip. And while they stare, you soar. Chapter 10. The Power of Saying No. Reclaim your time, energy, and life. You don't need a packed calendar to feel valuable. You don't need to say yes to everything to be a good person. You don't need to be available 24/7 to be loved. Because no is not a rejection. It's a declaration, a statement that says, I know what matters to me. I respect my energy. I choose my peace. If you want true freedom in life, learn the art of saying no, without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. Why saying no feels so hard? Most people don't struggle with saying no because they lack clarity. They struggle because they fear consequences. They'll be disappointed. They might stop liking me. What if I miss out? I don't want to seem rude or selfish. But here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to yourself. Your time is not renewable. Your energy is not unlimited. Your peace is not negotiable. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for honoring your limits. Not replying instantly. That's not rude. That's boundaried. Turning down a meeting. That's not lazy. That's intentional. Saying no to drama, pressure, or guilt. That's not selfish. That's self-respect. You don't have to sugarcoat your no. You don't need to twist it into a maybe later. You don't need to sacrifice your sanity for someone else's comfort. You simply say, no, thank you. And let that be enough. Every yes has a cost. Before saying yes, ask, what am I giving up by agreeing to this? Is this aligned with my values or just my fear of disapproval? Am I doing this from love or obligation? You're not responsible for how people react to your boundaries. You're responsible for how you honor your own well-being. When you say yes to what doesn't serve you, you slowly betray your future self. A real-life turnaround. Let's meet Priya, a high-performing professional who said yes to everything. Extra projects, late-night calls, weekend favors. She was the go-to person. Reliable, helpful, always available. Until her body gave up before her mind did. Chronic fatigue, burnout, silent resentment. Her turning point? A sticky note on her desk that read, every yes costs me something. What am I willing to lose today? From that day forward, she chose herself. She began saying no politely but firmly. And the world didn't end. In fact, her clarity earned more respect than her people-pleasing ever did. Where to start saying no. Say no to overcommitment. Say no to events that drain you. Say no to fake friendships. Say no to guilt-based invitations. Say no to conversations that steal your peace. Say no to distractions that steal your dreams. Each time you say no to what doesn't serve you, you say yes to what does. Yes to your priorities. Yes to your rest. Yes to your creativity. Yes to your evolution. How to say no with strength and grace. Be direct but kind. Thanks for thinking of me, but I can't commit to that. Don't over-explain. You don't need a 5-paragraph essay. No is enough. Practice in small moments. Start with little things. Build your boundary muscle. Use delay when needed. Let me think about it and get back to you. Buy yourself time to reflect instead of reacting. Celebrate every no. Every time you say no to something unaligned, you step closer to your true life. Journal prompts. Where in my life am I saying yes out of guilt or fear? What would become possible if I said no more often? What am I afraid will happen if I honor my no? Who am I without the need to please? Write, reflect, then act. Closing message for Chapter 10. Saying no isn't about closing doors. It's about choosing which doors lead to your truth. You were not born to be available for everything. You were not created to carry everyone's burdens. You were not designed to deplete yourself for acceptance. You are here to protect your energy, honor your time, and prioritize your peace. So say it. Say it proudly. Say it with love. No. To what drains you? To what distracts you? To what dishonors you? Because every no is a sacred yes to yourself. Chapter 11. Redefining confidence. It's not loud, it's aligned. You've been sold a lie. That confidence is about being the loudest in the room. That it's big gestures, bold words, and center stage presence. That it's charm, charisma, and constant visibility. But here's the truth. Real confidence is not loud, it's aligned. It's the quiet knowing of who you are. It's the peace of walking into a room without needing to prove anything. It's the power of standing your ground, even in silence. The myth of loud confidence. We often confuse performance with confidence. Think about it. The person talking the most in a meeting isn't always the one with the best ideas. The one with the flashiest lifestyle isn't always the most secure. The loudest voice in the argument is rarely the wisest. Loudness can be a mask, a way to cover insecurity, gain control, or avoid being truly seen. True confidence doesn't need to convince. It just is. What real confidence looks like? It's saying, I don't know, without shame. It's turning down an opportunity that doesn't align with your values. It's letting someone walk away without chasing them. It's taking action, even if your voice shakes. It's trusting yourself when no one claps. Confidence is not an image, it's an inner state. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to ask your own questions. Real life reflection. The quiet one who won. Daniel was always the quiet guy in the room. Not flashy, not loud, not constantly self-promoting. People overlooked him, until one day at a high-stakes presentation, the lead speaker fumbled, and Daniel stepped up, calmly, clearly, powerfully. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't try to impress. He just spoke from alignment, from preparation, purpose, and self-trust. By the end, the room was silent, not because he shouted, but because his certainty spoke louder than volume ever could. That's real confidence. Not loud, aligned. From approval, seeking to alignment. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You don't need to entertain. You don't need to dominate every space you enter. Instead, ask yourself, is what I'm doing aligned with who I am? Am I showing up for truth or for applause? Would I still do this even if no one noticed? Confidence built on performance needs constant validation. But confidence built on alignment? It's unshakable. How to build aligned confidence. Know your core values. When you're clear on what matters, decisions become easier and bolder. Honor your pace. You don't have to rush. Confidence is quiet consistency, not noisy urgency. Detach from image. You're not here to look confident. You're here to be real. That's more powerful. Trust your inner compass. The world will pull you in 100 directions. Confidence is choosing your own every single time. Own your quiet power. Speak when it matters. Move with intention. Let your results speak for you. Confidence mantras. I don't need to be loud to be powerful. I trust myself, even when others doubt me. I am enough even in silence. I show up for truth, not attention. I am aligned, and that is enough. Closing message for Chapter 11. Confidence isn't something you build like a facade. It's something you remember because it was already inside you. It's not volume. It's vision. It's not performance. It's presence. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You don't have to perform your worth. You don't have to chase praise to feel enough. Your quiet strength, your aligned truth, your unwavering self-trust. That's the kind of confidence that can't be shaken, stolen, or sold. So stop trying to be loud. Start being real. That's the kind of power that doesn't just turn heads. It transforms lives. Chapter 12. You don't owe anyone the polished version of you. You've spent years perfecting the performance, smiling when you were exhausted, nodding when you disagreed, acting fine when your soul was screaming. All to protect an image. To appear strong, capable, put together. To avoid discomfort, judgment, or rejection. But here's the truth that sets you free. You don't owe anyone the polished version of you. Not your followers. Not your family. Not even your closest friends. You owe them and yourself the truth. The pressure to be fine. We've been trained to believe that our worth is tied to how well we perform emotional control. Don't cry, it's weak. Don't struggle, it's unattractive. Don't show fear, it's embarrassing. So we filter. We fake, we hide. Until we become a highlight reel instead of a human being. But real connection doesn't happen through perfection. It happens through truth. Why? We hide the messy parts. We fear being misunderstood, being seen as weak or unstable, losing respect or love, making others uncomfortable. But what if the very things you hide are the exact things that could free someone else? What if your vulnerability could inspire another person to feel less alone? What if your raw honesty became a light in someone's darkest hour? You don't need to bleed for the world, but you can stop pretending that nothing hurts. A real-life shift. The leader who took off the mask. Meet Jason, a successful entrepreneur with thousands of followers. To the world, he was unstoppable, productive, positive, polished. But behind the scenes, he was battling anxiety, burnout, and self-doubt. Still, he kept the mask on. Until one day, he didn't. He posted a raw, honest video sharing his mental health struggles. He didn't have a solution, just truth. The response? Overwhelming. Not in pity, but in resonance. Because people weren't looking for another perfect persona. They were craving someone real. And in that moment, Jason learned, you don't lose power by being vulnerable. You gain connection by being human. You're not a brand. You're a being. This isn't a performance. This is your life. And you weren't born to be a product. You weren't designed to impress everyone you meet. You were made to experience the full spectrum of being alive: joy, sadness, fear, triumph, and all the messy in-betweens. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfectly healed to be worthy. You don't have to smile through every storm to be respected. How to drop the mask safely and powerfully. Start with yourself. Give yourself permission to feel it all without judgment. Name what's real, feel what's raw. Be selective, not secretive. Vulnerability doesn't mean broadcasting everything. It means choosing honesty over performance. Stop apologizing for being human. You're allowed to have bad days, to need space, to cry. You don't have to perform strength. Redefine strength. Strength isn't pretending everything's okay. It's showing up anyway, even when it's not. Speak up before you break down. It's not weak to ask for help. It's wise. The bravest people speak before the silence drowns them. Journal prompts. What parts of myself do I hide to be accepted? Who do I pretend to be, and why? What would it feel like to be fully seen and still loved? What story am I ready to stop performing? Closing message for Chapter 12. You were never meant to be a performance. You were meant to be a presence. You were not born to be polished. You were born to be whole, messy, honest, growing, and real. So take off the mask. Let people meet the real you, the one who doesn't have all the answers, who's still healing, still evolving, still showing up. You don't owe anyone perfection. You don't owe them a filtered version of your life. You don't owe anyone a smile that costs you your truth. You only owe yourself this: to live aligned, to live honestly, to live free. Because the right people won't love you because you're polished. They'll love you because you're real. Chapter 13. You deserve to take up space. Stop shrinking to fit in. You weren't born to be small. You weren't meant to apologize for your presence. You weren't designed to dim your light so others feel comfortable. But somewhere along the way, you learned to shrink, to hold back your opinions, suppress your needs, hide your talents, and play the background in your own life. You learned to read the room before you spoke. You learned to say, "I'm sorry," for things that required no apology. You learned that being too much could make people uncomfortable. So you made yourself less. But here's the truth. You don't need to earn your place. You don't need to seek permission to exist fully. You are allowed to take up space, emotionally, mentally, physically, creatively, unapologetically. You deserve to walk into any room and know you belong there. Not because of what you've achieved, but because you are human. And humans don't need to justify their worth. Shrinking is a survival strategy. It's how we've protected ourselves in environments that didn't feel safe. When you were told to be quiet, when you were told you were too sensitive, too emotional, too loud, too ambitious, too different, you internalized those voices and began editing yourself to be more digestible. But shrinking doesn't protect you. It suffocates you. It disconnects you from your truth. It turns your brilliance into background noise. You don't expand your life by playing small. You expand your life by showing up fully, by speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes, by asking for what you need, by expressing your desires, by setting boundaries, by walking in your power, even if others don't understand it, even if it makes them uncomfortable. Taking up space doesn't mean being arrogant. It means owning your existence. It means not shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. It means standing tall in rooms that once made you feel invisible. It means no longer dimming your light to make others feel better about their shadows. Let's talk about Leah. For years, she played small. She apologized constantly. She overexplained everything. She avoided taking credit. She kept her ideas to herself. Until one day she realized the cost of shrinking was her own joy. She stopped apologizing for speaking her mind. She started raising her hand, sharing her work, asking for more. And the world didn't fall apart. In fact, it started noticing her brilliance. You don't need to become someone else to belong. You don't need to change your voice, your shape, your tone, your dreams. You simply need to believe. You are enough as you are, not when you're quieter, not when you're smaller, not when you're more likable, but now, as you are. Start reclaiming your space today. Speak without apologizing. Walk with intention. Laugh without holding back. Stand tall. Ask boldly. Take time to rest. Say no when it's not right. Say yes when your soul lights up. Let yourself be seen, not just accepted. You were not made to be a background character in someone else's story. You are the author of your own. So write it in bold letters. Speak it in full volume. Live it in full color. You deserve to take up space. Chapter 14. Healing the Fear of Judgment. No one has to approve your journey. Judgment is everywhere. On faces, in whispers, across screens, behind silence. It waits at every step you take outside what's familiar. But the fear of being judged doesn't come from the world. It comes from the belief that others have more authority over your path than you do. You were taught to look outward before you moved, to seek validation before you trusted yourself, to hold back until someone gave you permission to move forward. So you paused your progress to please their opinions. You adjusted your dreams to avoid their discomfort. You lowered your voice to escape their criticism. And in that process, you abandoned your own rhythm. You handed your power to those who were never meant to carry it. Judgment only has weight when you believe it defines you. But opinions are not instructions. They're reflections of someone else's experience, not evidence about your value. People will evaluate your choices through the lens of their fears, their upbringing, their limitations, not through your potential. If you live to avoid their disapproval, you'll forever stay behind your potential, sacrificing your purpose for their comfort. It's not your job to convince anyone that your path is worthy. Your growth doesn't need their applause to be real. Your healing doesn't need to be explained to be valid. Your steps don't require consensus to be right. Let's be clear. Most judgment is a mirror. When someone reacts harshly to your progress, it often means your courage is shining light on the parts of themselves they've kept buried. When you evolve, you force others to question why they haven't. That discomfort isn't yours to carry. You don't need to make yourself smaller to soothe someone else's insecurity. You don't need to slow down just because others are standing still. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be whole. Take Kieran, for example. After years of doing what was expected, he finally quit the job that made him miserable and moved across the country to pursue his art. Friends called him irresponsible. Relatives warned him he'd regret it. Online followers questioned his decision. But he didn't explain. He didn't defend. He just kept creating. A year later, he wasn't just surviving. He was thriving, doing what lit him up from within. Not because the world believed in him, but because he stopped waiting for it to. You cannot control who judges you, but you can control what you let in. Not every opinion deserves access to your energy. Not every comment is worth your attention. You have the right to build a life that makes sense to your soul, even if no one claps for it. Detach from the need to be understood. You don't owe anyone a version of your life that makes them comfortable. You owe yourself alignment. That's it. So the next time you feel the sting of being judged, remember this. Your path is sacred. Your pace is personal. Your journey is yours. And if someone doesn't approve of it, that's fine. They weren't invited to walk it anyway. Chapter 15. Unfollow the noise protecting your mental space. in a world that won't stop talking. Every moment, something is pulling at your attention. Notifications flashing, headlines shouting, opinions swirling, trends rising, judgments flying. The world demands your focus with relentless urgency, offering a constant stream of information that rarely feeds your soul, but always fragments your peace. You wake up to other people's thoughts, scroll through their judgments, compare their highlight reels to your behind-the-scenes struggles, and wonder why your mind feels so heavy. But it's not your mind that's broken. It's the noise that's crowding your clarity. Noise is not just volume. It's distraction dressed as relevance. It's the subtle drain of endless updates, unsolicited advice, performative posts, and mindless opinions. It invades your thoughts, hijacks your creativity, and replaces your intuition with manufactured urgency. And yet, you keep consuming, not because it helps you grow, but because you've forgotten how silence feels. You've confused stimulation for significance. But stillness isn't empty. It's where your truest answers live. Until you protect your inner environment, the outer world will decide who you become. Let's talk about control. You can't quiet the entire world, but you can choose what enters your mind. You decide who gets a voice in your mental space. Not every post deserves your view. Not every message requires your energy. Not every trend is meant for your life. When you curate your inputs, you transform your outputs. Protecting your focus isn't selfish, it's essential. Because your attention is your most sacred currency, and you only get so much each day. Spend it with intention, not obligation. Consider Maya, a driven designer who realized her best ideas were fading. She felt scattered, uninspired, chronically overstimulated. Every morning started with a feed full of other people's opinions. Her thoughts didn't even have time to form before they were drowned by someone else's agenda. One morning, she made a radical choice: delete the noise. She unfollowed every page that made her feel small, muted all chaos, set phone-free hours, and began each day with silence. Within a week, her creativity returned. Her energy deepened, her clarity sharpened. And what changed most wasn't her world. It was what she allowed inside it. To protect your peace, you must become the guardian of your gates. Silence is not absence, it's presence. In the stillness, you hear your own voice again. You reconnect with your values. You reclaim your intention. When you stop letting the world define your reality, you begin shaping a life that feels like your own. You don't need to respond to every message. You don't need to join every conversation. You don't need to be accessible to everyone. You need space. Space to feel. Space to create. Space to breathe. So take inventory. What voices are you letting in that don't align with who you're becoming? What content are you consuming that lowers your energy? What notifications are interrupting the very moments you need most? Don't wait for permission. Unfollow. Mute, block, log off. Clear the room in your mind so your soul can stretch. This world isn't slowing down anytime soon, but you can. You can walk away from noise without guilt. You can choose stillness in a storm. You can protect your mind like the sanctuary it is, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. Not because you're afraid, but because you're awake. Chapter 16. Let confidence be quiet. Walking boldly. Without needing to be seen. Confidence isn't always loud, flashy, or dressed in applause. It doesn't need a spotlight, an audience, or a stage. Real confidence walks without noise. It doesn't announce itself. It simply arrives. It moves without explanation. It chooses presence over performance. It shows up rooted, not reactive. It doesn't seek to impress. It seeks to align. And in that quiet, steady, intentional movement, there is power most people overlook. The world glorifies volume. Be seen, be liked, be followed, be praised. But confidence doesn't need witnesses to be real. It doesn't need to prove, compete, or seek validation. It knows its value even when no one is watching. It keeps building even when no one is clapping. It rests in the truth that self-worth isn't a transaction. It's a state of being. When you embody that kind of strength, you no longer chase significance. You become it. You begin to realize your loudest victories don't need to be shared. Your deepest growth won't be posted. Your boldest moves won't come with hashtags or highlights. They'll happen quietly, in the decisions you make when no one's looking, in the habits you build without recognition, in the moments you say yes to yourself and no to distraction. It's in the discipline, the focus, the restraint, the stillness. Take Nina. She stopped performing for approval. No more updates to prove she was progressing. No more commentary on her healing. She simply worked, read, walked, created, reflected. Her friends thought she had vanished, but in silence she was rebuilding, not for validation, for alignment. Months later she returned, not louder, not flashier, but stronger. Not because she spoke more, but because she finally knew she didn't have to. Letting your confidence be quiet means you no longer measure worth by reaction. You know what you carry. You trust where you're going. You don't need to justify your choices to anyone outside your own integrity. You let results speak when necessary and stay silent when not. You don't waste energy convincing those committed to misunderstanding you. You conserve your power for what actually matters: your peace, your growth, your truth. This doesn't mean hiding. It means choosing intentional visibility. Not everything you do needs to be shared. Not every step forward requires commentary. Some things are sacred. Some breakthroughs are too personal for platforms. And when you give yourself permission to evolve without external confirmation, you find freedom deeper than any applause could offer. So walk boldly, but don't walk to be seen. Walk to become. Let your growth speak through the way you carry yourself, the way you make decisions, the way you protect your boundaries. Let your strength echo in the way you choose calm over chaos. Let your presence declare your direction without a single word. You are not powerful because you're noticed. You're powerful because you're anchored. You are not worthy because others approve. You are worthy because you exist. You don't have to announce every move. Just keep moving, keep rising, keep showing up. Let your confidence whisper while your life roars.